the biggest and most important storyline for most people in the last week or two in the NBA was some news that had a little bit of a negative connotation to it. Nothing like drastic or super serious in terms of anybody, anything like life threatening. All it was a negative story that the NBA definitely wants to make sure they nip in the bud right away, or at least they're going to try to, with Draymond Green getting suspended indefinitely after a situation he had during a game against Yusuf Nurkic on the Phoenix Suns, in a game where Draymond Green literally throws a roundhouse punch in an attempt to try to kind of get open. I don't know. He's playing offense, getting guarded by Nurkic behind him, and he just does a full 360 and lands a right cross in Nurkic's face neck area. It was as clear as day that Draymond's trying to hurt him, trying to punch him, going out of his way. And after the incident, anybody with a brain and eyes sees the replay or sees it happen in real time, watches Draymond turn and basically try to punch him without actually closing his fists and turning and loading, punches Nurkic and receives a flagrant 2, gets ejected, and then subsequently gets suspended indefinitely by the NBA while he seeks some counseling. The official statement from the NBA Communications PR release on the 13th, December 13th. Golden State Warriors forward Draymond Green has been suspended indefinitely for striking the Phoenix Suns center Yusuf Nurkic in the face. It was announced today by Joe Dumars, Executive Vice President and Head of Basketball Operations for the NBA. This outcome takes into account Draymond Green's repeated history of unsportsmanlike acts. The incident occurred with 8:23 remaining in the third quarter of the Warriors' 119-116 loss to the Suns on December 12th at the Footprint Center. Green received a flagrant foul 2 and was ejected. His suspension will begin immediately, and he will be required to meet certain league and team conditions before he returns to play. So he's not just suspended, he's suspended indefinitely, and before he can come back from his indefinite suspension, apparently he needs to meet some sort of standards or guidelines in terms of counseling and all these other things that they're going to be providing for Draymond Green because, like mentioned in this PR release, he is a repeated offender and he has a history of unsportsmanlike acts. Another article from from The Athletic by Shams mentioning the same thing. League sources said that Draymond was expected to receive counseling and work with the NBA while he's suspended. People around Draymond Green and the organization say that the 4-time NBA champion has been understanding and prepared to undergo the process required to return to the team in full capacity. 3-week time frame has been thrown around in terms of how long that would take to complete this sort of counseling that he's being provided. And that would cover about 12 games from the Warriors schedule. The best part about all this, and mentioned in this article, this latest incident with Draymond Green is his 20th career ejection. Let me repeat that. 20 career ejections for Draymond Green. That's a lot of ejections. I don't know how many times some other guys have been ejected. I would imagine there's some of the best players of all time haven't been ejected that many times. More so in this article, Green's suspension. Draymond Green has now been suspended, according to this, 6 times, and his second time this season. He's already accumulated 16 technicals, and he also stepped on a player in the playoffs. Yeah, so Draymond Green is out of control. He's been out of control, but he's out of control. He's been suspended 6 times in his career, second time this season already, and now he's indefinitely suspended by the NBA until he receives or meets the requirements that are provided with this counseling session that he's going to be getting. The problem with this indefinite suspension for Draymond Green is that at the end of the day, he knows he's going to come back and play in the NBA. And he knows it's going to be this season. He's going to miss about 12 games, which is what most guys across the NBA usually average missing anyways, with any combination of rest days on back-to-backs or injuries or a lot of different reasons, a lot of different things. But 3 weeks or 12 total games for the Golden State Warriors without Draymond Green. This suspension yet again is forever going to mean nothing. It's going to mean nothing. They tagged it with indefinite because that makes it seem like it's worse than it is. It's a 3-week suspension. It may be 4 weeks. It may be 5 weeks, but it's not indefinite. Indefinite means they're won't be at any point a legitimate end date set until a long period of time passes. Months, 2 months, 3 months. Now we're going to be revisiting. But the fact is, this counseling session for Draymond Green and this indefinite suspension is going to do nothing. And I would bet my life that a situation just like what happened with Draymond Green leading up to this suspension is going to happen again for Draymond Green. I would bet my life on it because the fact is Draymond Green is problematic. He's problematic against other teams. He's problematic amongst his own team. He's a problematic person who has a hard time controlling his emotions. That's who he is deep down. Now, the hope is that the counseling and the suspension will help him realize those things and avoid these types of physical and emotional reactions going forward. But when you have a very short window of a 2.5, 3 week counseling session and an indefinite suspension, that's not indefinite. And he knows exactly when he's going to be coming back, and he knows he's not going to miss that much time. Those factors included in all of this are going to end up washing away any sort of treatment he receives in this process. They're going to wash it away. And Draymond Green's going to come back and he's going to have another incident. And then what? Do you indefinitely suspend him again? Or do you just let him keep doing whatever he wants to do? If the NBA really, really wanted to send a message with this Draymond Green suspension and to Draymond specifically about his behavior, they would come out and say, he's indefinitely suspended. He's seeking counseling. He's doing all the different stuff that he's included in this. And he received a flagrant 2 because of his horrendous assault on some other guy during an NBA game. And after he returns from his suspension, whenever that may be, if he receives another flagrant 2, he is suspended for the rest of the season. That would imply that his behavior previously and moving forward has not been and will not be acceptable. But Draymond Green is going to come back and do the same thing unless they crack down a little bit harder. Because Draymond Green has been suspended 6 times in the history of his career. He typically is in the top 5 in technical fouls every single season. And he has a history of being a ridiculously over-the-top, physically, basically, what's the word? He's had a number of different physical altercations on the court, off the court, but inside the NBA at one point or another, a number of different times. That's who he is as a player and as a person. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the counseling he's going to receive is not going to help. I don't know that for sure. I'm not going to sit here and tell you maybe he comes back and he is an archangel, saint, heaven person, the most model citizen of all time. I don't know that for sure. But what I can tell you is that Draymond Green has a history of this behavior, and this suspension, indefinite, and this counseling is not going to be effective enough to stop Draymond Green from coming back and having another physical altercation. Whether it's with one of his teammates, with another player, it's going to happen again because Draymond Green ultimately knows he's going to come back. He knows he's going to play in the NBA again this season. He knows that if he has another incident, he may get a bigger, larger suspension. But at the end of the day, the NBA is telling him, if you act this way, then the only thing they can really do is, we'll go seek some counseling. We're going to suspend you indefinitely, but you'll be back in the NBA at some point. They're not taking the approach of, why is it always you, Draymond? Nobody else seems to have these problems. Nobody else has got suspended 6 times in such a short amount of time as you have, Draymond. Nobody's already been suspended twice this season. Nobody. It's always you, Draymond. You have a history and a pattern of poor behavior. And so because of that, we need to make an example out of you. Indefinite suspension. He's seeking counseling. Let's hope and pray, fingers crossed, he can come back as a better player and a better person. But if he doesn't, and he gets another flagrant 2 at any point in this season from a physical altercation within the league's judgment, he will be suspended for the remainder of the season. Because otherwise, he's going to come back. He'll probably have another incident. Maybe not this year, but who knows? Warriors get in the playoffs. Things get a little bit heated, a little emotional. Next thing you know, Draymond Green is stomping on somebody's head. Draymond Green's doing a full 360 and roundhousing somebody in the jaw. It's always Draymond Green. It's never anybody else. The NBA thought they were making an example of Draymond Green with this suspension. And in my opinion, it's not enough. And it's not enough because, number one, Draymond Green knows he's coming back at some point this season. So what does he care? He's going to do whatever he wants, come back and get paid stupid money because he's in the NBA. They're making a ton of money. Number two, They're not telling him that this behavior is entirely unacceptable and that if it happens again, there's going to be extreme punishments. And number 3, he knows all this stuff already because he's already been suspended 6 times. He got suspended earlier this season. So the punishment, indefinite suspension, that's eyewash because it's not indefinite. He's coming back, sounds like relatively soon. Going to miss 12 games, 3 weeks. That's just not that much time. Counseling, whatever, 3 weeks, it's not going to do anything. I'd guarantee it and put my life on Draymond Green coming back, whether it's at some point again this season or another point in his career, will have another ridiculously over-the-top physical altercation. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Put my life on it. So what the NBA should do is indefinite suspension like they're doing, counseling like they're doing, and put out a message. We're giving all this stuff for Draymond, suspended, counseling, and if he gets another flagrant 2 foul and has another physical altercation in the eyes and the judgment of the NBA behavior board or whoever they do, or whoever they have that looks at these altercations and determines the length of the suspension, another flagrant 2, and in the eyes of this committee or whoever, or the eyes of the NBA, it's physical enough, he will be suspended for the remainder of the season. If he comes back after a suspension, right, and has another flagrant 2 physical altercation in the eyes of the NBA, he will be suspended without pay until the end of the 2023-2024 season. That's the only way to send a message enough to Draymond. I go, dude, stop assaulting people on the court. Stop. Because if you don't do that, they're going to tell him, all right, well, we're just going to suspend you again next time. Suspend it a little bit, come back. 6-8 months go by. Oh, Draymond's playing. It is what it is. And he assaults somebody again. Suspended for a couple of weeks. Comes back and he is like, it's a pattern. It's never going to stop unless they send a message. If it happens again, you're done, dude. You're done for the season because nobody else is anywhere close to the level that Draymond Green's been at with all these suspensions and all this entire situation. They got to send a message. The guy's out of control. He's out of control. Got to send a message. The message they tried to send wasn't strong enough and they need to send a better one moving forward. I hope the best for Draymond. I hope Draymond can come out of this because you've seen Draymond on the podcasts and in public appearances and like at his peak, he's an excellent big man in the NBA, but he can't control his emotions. He's too impulsive. He's too physically violent. He needs obviously not just counseling, but I think a lot more than that. I think over the off season, I think, maybe, I don't know. I'm not an expert in that area, but I can tell you that this suspension and this indefinite thing, it's just not enough. It's not enough. And Draymond's going to come back and probably end up doing the same thing. But I hope the best. I hope it never happens again. It's just, we have a pattern. We've seen it before and I hope it gets better. But to me, this wasn't enough. And I don't think it's going to get better until they absolutely slam down the gavel and give it to him seriously, much more drastically. One more flagrant 2, Draymond. At any point this year, you're suspended for the season. And hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully he comes back and plays good basketball and doesn't assault people and finds a level of his life where he doesn't feel like that's necessary and he can control his impulses a little bit better. But I guess that's yet to be seen, yet to be determined. Could totally happen, I guess, when he comes back from this suspension. Maybe, like I said, maybe he comes back and he's the nicest guy of all time. He's never has a problem again. And in that case, that'd be awesome. Not sure that's going to happen. I hope the best for Draymond, but I also think the NBA needs to make a little bit more of an example out of him now and moving forward.